It's Elite Trading Podcast, and we are in Series 1. My name's Kaylor, and I'm here with a special guest. We have two special guests for the talking about their specific roles in Pontus and what we got going on with their new product launch, and asking just a few questions with them and giving them an opportunity to talk about themselves and what they do. And if I will turn it over to you guys, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Connor Yoon, CEO of Pontus Water Rentals, and we're excited to be here today to share with you guys, kind of our vision, what we've done up until this point, and what we plan to do.
Yeah, this is Olsen, the VP. Pontus is a really cool project. Our main kind of catch line or mission statement is reinventing agriculture. We're very excited about what we're up to, and we really believe that we're contributing to a big cause here.
Absolutely.
Now, can you guys elaborate more on like what your product is and like what it actually does, and kind of some highlights about it? I did see your packaging. I thought it was really sleek and very very good. We did kind of some review on it when we were looking at it, and I thought the packaging was good. But other than that, like what does the product actually do, and like tell us a little about that.
So number one, we're a technology company. So the biggest asset or business that we operate in is in developing our technology.
It's a closed environmental vertical aquaponics system, and the whole purpose of it is really for two things. One is to create a more sustainable way of growing things, and two is to grow it way faster. And the reason why that we can be more sustainable is that we recycle 95% of the water. The water never leaves the loop, and the only water that we do leave is lost to evaporation. And we try to run as much of each facility as we can off solar power. So in Vancouver, we obviously can't use as much solar power if we were down in like Vegas or something like that. But when it comes to the plants, we can actually grow plants sometimes twice as fast, sometimes 3 times as fast as traditionally growing it outdoor. And the reason for that is because we can control the lighting systems. So typically the plants will receive more than 12 hours of sunlight, and it helps them grow that much faster. Plus we can control how much nutrients goes into that water as well.
Yeah, so the CV system is really interesting because number one, we're indoor, so we can grow anywhere. We have our own lighting systems and our own climate systems, whereas we can adjust the temperature, we can control the air, the water, everything within the facility. Another part is that usually these facilities are grown hydroponically, and we're aquaponics, so it's a little bit different. We're hydroponics. If you're in cannabis or you're pretty educated in agriculture technology, hydroponics is basically just vertical farming, but they don't have an organic source of nutrients for the plants that are growing. So they use synthetic nutrients, they use chemicals, whatever it is. Whereas for us, we actually raise fish in the facility. And the fish, the biggest role they play is that we use their waste and we convert it through a natural process with using bacteria into nutrients for the plants. So this is a completely symbiotic relationship here, where the plants get food from the fish and the fish get their water cleaned from the plants. Because in normal aquaculture, where fish are raised in farms, the biggest problem is that they spend their entire life basically living in their own waste.
Right. Exactly.
So it's a huge problem, and they're very compact, because the more fish that they raise, the more money they make. Well, for us, our water lentils or whatever plant that we decide to grow, they're our biggest source of revenue, and as well as the plants continuously clean the water for the fish. So it's a very, very healthy environment for both parties. And that's kind of the first aspect of our technology is having this really sustainable and symbiotic relationship, and being able to produce organic food and very, very natural food on an indoor setting.
Plus using Cevis, we can, especially when it comes to water lentils, we can actually grow them about 3.5, almost 4 times faster than them naturally growing outdoor.
Yeah.
So that gives us instead of it taking 75 to 100 hours to double in mass, we have it down to every 16 to 24 hours, depending on which strain. Some grow a little bit faster than others.
Yeah. We'll talk a little more about water lentils after. We kind of just jumping around here, but the other thing for our technology that we're that is really cool is that we're biosecure, which is a really big factor. So the biosecurity aspect, when you're growing food, usually you have to use chemical pesticides, you have to use chemical fertilizer. That's just common in, I would say, 99.5% of all products. I'm just throwing a number out there, but like the majority of products out there, they're made through chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers. There's that's to protect your plants from insects, from birds, from all types of contamination and all types of animals or insects, whatever it is that can mess with it. But because we're growing it indoor, we don't need to use any of those chemical fertilizer pesticides. So if you're looking at plant-based protein, for example, you look at Beyond Meat, their products test positive for a variety of chemicals.
I've heard they're not great.
I think Beyond Meat's not sure if it's Roundup, but I know Impossible Burger definitely has Roundup. So that is a huge problem for a lot of these companies because they use soy and they use pea grown outdoor, and the only way for farmers to kind of protect their yield, protect their crop, protect their livelihood is to use these chemicals. So another aspect is that there's all types of contamination. People are stepping on it. It's outdoor. There's microbes, etc. So what we have also is that not only is it's indoors, we have a completely closed system where there's actual air showers where you have to walk in. So it's almost like a laboratory environment where we grow our food in, which is super, super secure. Nothing gets in or out, and we control whatever is gets inside or outside of the facility. The other thing is that we leverage AI and automation. The AI monitors is meant to monitor the climates indoor. Because our aquaponics system is decoupled, we can grow different temperature or different plants that need different temperatures and climates in the same facility. For example, the fish, the fish, they have one climate that they are suited for, whereas the water lentils, they need like 28, it's like 28 degrees, really, really hot climate, whereas the fish is a lot cooler. And we have our system with our IP, we're able to kind of decouple that system, meaning that each section of what we're growing has a different climate involved in it, which is a huge innovation because traditional aquaponics, whatever it's out there, it's usually in a singular one, it's in one system. So the climate has to be the same. So this is really groundbreaking for us, whereas we can grow all types of different things in the same facility. The other part is automated harvesting, where we're developing basically robotics to harvest, because we're vertical, right? We don't need as much space, but how do we get up 30, 50, 100 feet in the air? To have someone climb up there and harvest, that's not really realistic. So we're developing robotics, automation to be able to do the harvesting for us. So that's kind of the basics of technology of what reinventing agriculture is, and where we really want to take this technology to the mainstream to really change the way we grow food. And I guess I can let Connor take over and kind of explain to you what our first crop is and what we plan to do with it, and our plans with the now per se, and how we're going to get there and how we're going to make this technology kind of global.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, awesome. So with water lentils, there's two things we love about it. One is the nutrient profile, since the most common plants that are used in like all plant-based protein products are typically pea and soy, sometimes pumpkin, sometimes you see some hemp, but those are typically the four most common ones. And then out of those four, typically don't use the entire plant. So for any nutrients that those plants actually did have outside of the protein are isolated out just to get a high protein content. And, they're typically, because those are range at much lower protein percentages, like even pumpkin seeds sometimes can be 1%, soy can range between, 6% up to 20 something percent. So realistically, they're just taking out the protein. With water lentils, they're 42 to 50% protein in our mix. And we also have all 10 essential amino acids. We have calcium, iron, potassium, chlorophyll, calcium, magnesium, tons of different vitamins in it that make it a superfood. And that's the main reason why, we don't want to take out just the protein. We think that, having all those nutrients in there is definitely beneficial for the human body. And since the protein levels are already so high, we can get great protein content no matter what recipe we make because of the water lentils. And also, you wanted me to transition to kind of, how we wanted to globally, grow this technology. Really, there's two ways for us to do it. One is for us to keep expanding with our own facilities, and we do plan to do that. And then secondly, we own the IP for the technology. So we have the ability to license this technology out to other groups who want to be able to grow food in this biosecure way. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't just apply to just water lentils. We can essentially grow anything in the system. So, we plan to release a ton of different recipes that were all plant-based. And the long-term vision for us is that we can grow every single vegetable that's used in every single one of those recipes. And, whether we keep going the way we've been going with these, kind of like giant factory or farm-like facilities, or we want to transition to more of like a multi-floor kind of facility. It's almost representing more of like a skyscraper. That would be our long-term vision, to have real buildings in every major city that could produce all of the different vegetables and fruit. So I'll give you an example. Like, this system's so good that we can grow blueberries in January, no problem. And it doesn't matter where around the world it is, because the fact that we control all of the factors that come into growing every plant with the entire environment. We can control the temperature levels, we can control everything. So maybe I'll let Jesse hop in for a second. We haven't let him ask too many questions.
Hey, no worries. I mean, I'm just listening. I'm learning. I'm learning with you guys. This is stuff that I'm one of those people who take out a lot of notes and like to learn and grow my, my palette of what I know. So this is new stuff to me, and I think it's awesome. So I just wanted to ask you guys, with what you're doing, what made you get into it? Like, what's your background? Did you have like a college background, or did you go to school for this, or did you have like just how did you guys get this idea out there, and like what made you really go for it?
Well, really, it actually started 2.5 years ago. Actually a little bit more than that. Me and Austin have done a lot of investing in the past, whether it was cannabis or blockchain or tons of different random stuff. And, we liked that at the time in 2017, 2018, but really moving into 2018, we actually both felt like that there was going to be a recession coming.
Okay.
We didn't know it was going to be a global pandemic like coronavirus. But we wanted to get involved in something that, number one, was a difference maker, because we always do care about, me and Austin really do care about helping people. That's one of our genuine passions. And secondly, we wanted to get in with our investors and ourselves into something that we thought would do well even in a recession, and it was food. And there was a huge plant-based protein kind of swing that was happening during that time. It wasn't half as crazy as it is right now. And then we had, came across, we knew Steve for a handful of years, and then he told us that he developed this technology and found this plant called a water lentil with like 40 to 50% protein. And
Okay.
after we took a look at it, we were like, oh my gosh, like this is an absolute winner. And we'd never seen a plant like water lentils. Most people have never even heard of it before. And then when we came across it, we looked at the nutrient profile, how quickly it grew. Like how could you go wrong? Like 40 to 50% protein, doubles in mass every 24 hours. Like that's almost
crazy.
Ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So for us to see that's the long-term kind of vision came about, that we could be able to use this technology not only to grow plants in a healthier way, but with a plant that doubles in mass so fast, how many people could we really feed? And, if we could into the future look at partnering up with government bodies in different countries, we could be able to produce so much food so much quicker than that's traditionally done today. So, this is kind of based on a handful of reasons, but, really when we put them all together, it seemed like something that we would really want to be a part of. And once me and Alston, make a commitment to something, we run a small VC fund. We wrote the first $500,000 check to the company, and we wanted to make sure that our investors' money is going to be used properly and responsibly. And that's why we came on board as CEO and EVP, and we've been running with it ever since.
Is that from Conquest Capital? Is that the other?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, I did a little research. I didn't want to come in too blind here.
For sure.
But so I see we got your intentions and goals for the future, basically, and you got some broad different goals that could be definitely. Sounds like you guys are open for growth, no matter what level it could be, whether it's global, it's feeding the nation, or whether it's feeding grocery stores growing their own produce in the city. you know, things of that nature. So that's,
Yeah,
I live
one
right in the
step at a
middle of
time.
downtown Cincinnati. So we have a Kroger that's, you know, 2 to 3 stories tall. It to me, right when you said that, I had the vision of this, you know, massive addition right above it or next to it, to where they just have all the produce ready to go. We're getting so much better, fresh, you know, different things. And I mean, I'm all in for something like that. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
sorry, Alston's probably going to say the exact same thing, but I was going to say a huge portion of the reason why a lot of the food isn't as good by the time you eat it is because like a lot of bananas come from like South America. You know what I mean? They got to take a
right.
long trip over the water, and they got to like, how many different hands do they touch, and how old is that fruit and vegetable by the time it gets to you? And then if we could have, you know, these skyscrapers, every single floor grows a different type of vegetable or fruit, and that's really like local in your city. And by the time it gets to you, it's not only fresh, but it's grown in like the most biosecure way possible. You know, there's never been a fly or a bug or anything that's ever touched it. There's never been any chemicals, and it's only grown, you know, using organic nutrients. For me, like that seems like the way that food should be made, but I don't think anyone has really kind of stepped up to that point until now.
yeah. So if you're talking about Conquest Capital, our venture capital firm is really unique in the way that we're very selective with what projects we take on. For us, you know, we put hours and hours and hours of our time, like hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours into this one project. Whereas, you know, most venture capital firms, they do, you know, 10 deals and they just, and, you know, 1 or 2 of them that goes well, then they're happy. Well, for us is that we put all our resources into making sure that the projects that we do, they have, you know, huge scalability. They solve huge problems. Like for example, if you look at ARK investing, you know, that they invest in disruptive technology. We're kind of an extension of that. Whereas, but also we develop the businesses per se, because me and Connor, we didn't really want to invest our investors' money and our money into basically just not a stranger, but someone that you study on, and someone that you Google, someone that you read about, but you don't really know what they think and where their mindset actually is. Whereas for us, is we invested in ourselves and the people that we work with, because we saw everybody working hard every day, and we saw the potential in the business, and we saw it the day-to-days of everything that's happened. And that's where we really took the step to really develop really cool businesses down the road. And you know, we because we're so selective, we're able to, you know, have the properly allocated time to actually scale these businesses to a very large point. And we're just in the start of Pontus. Me and Connor are going to be very committed to Pontus for the next 2, 3, 5 years before we look at anything else, because we want to make sure that when we're doing something like as big as reinventing agriculture and creating a new way to consume our food, it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of resources for us to actually make an impact. And I feel like we can't leave this alone until we make that impact. And then any other deal or any other project that from there, we really want to look at the factors. If it is it really going to change the world? Because I feel like a lot of companies nowadays, you know, the problems they solve, they're not huge. They might be alternatives, but they're not groundbreaking. You know, no hate to Uber, all these companies, but like, for example, taxis already exist. They just improved upon an industry, right? And then you look at we look at WeWorks, offices already exist, and co-offices already exist, but they just made it bigger and they branded it and they made a lifestyle, right? Whereas there's so many problems. Like, we need to get rid of the plastics in the ocean. We need to get rid of we need to have a way to desalinize our water to fresh drinking water. We need a way to grow food in space. We need a way to grow food for us to eat. We need a way to improve our roads and transport, electricity consumption. These are huge things that I feel like not a lot of investing firms and businesses are looking at, because they're very focused on the dollar sign. They're very focused on the trends. They're very focused on making their graph go up, essentially. Whereas for me and Connor, we feel like the bigger the problem that we solve, the bigger the solution we provide, the more impactful our investment and the more impactful our lives and the people that we've connected with has done. So that's kind of our philosophy, our investing philosophy, and the philosophy of what our venture capital firm and Pontus and all the companies that we're going to work on will kind of share.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, guys, how old are you two? We haven't talked about, a little bit of the personal side of you. How old are you gentlemen? Because you guys seem fairly young, but I'm only 34 myself, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 28.
28.
And Austin's he's 22.
Okay. And it means something to me because this is, I'll kind of transition into where I can kind of go on my mini tangent and how I can fit in along why it's cool that we met, and while I might not be looking at the green side of things when it comes to money either, or looking at environmental with what I do, but I did find something in a niche that I saw, which was, I saw that there was a lot of people out there, young retail investors. My nephew, who's 16 years old, he didn't even know what a stock was. He says, Uncle Jesse's like, what is a stock? Like, what does it mean when I buy one? And when he asked me that, it kind of blew my mind a little bit, because he instantly knew what cryptocurrency was, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you not know about these simple, strategies and what a stock market is? And if you buy a share, you own part of the company. And why aren't they teaching anybody this in high school? Nobody taught me about it. I had to teach myself. And I saw a bigger problem kind of along the lines of where I said, how is there's just nothing really out there for people to learn. So that's where what we're doing now grew to, is that I want people that are from the giants to the small guys to get their voice out there and be able to talk about it. So we lined up people where we're going to be talking to CEOs and CFOs of companies that aren't even public yet, that are just growing and coming out with new ideas and products and things like that, all the way up to people that may have been around for 5 to 10 years. And I think that it's great what you guys are doing, and I will definitely keep, obviously down the road, I want to follow up with you guys and stay in touch and see how things are growing. I think that you guys have pretty much covered. If there's anything you guys want to do for a closing statement, we've got your intentions and goals. We know what Conquest Capital is. Pontus is making things come true in the green scene. And, I'm hoping to hear a lot big things from your guys' name here in the future. And, 3 to 5 years, that's a small term for when you're doing something as big as you guys are trying to do. But I think that it sounds like you guys are ahead of the game and on the right track, and hopefully ahead of the competitors, because we didn't talk about competitors, but we don't want to bring their names in it if there are any, or if there's not any. Maybe you want to touch on that, or maybe to end off your last statements there.
Yeah, well, it's going to take at least a decade for us to make meaningful change, because, I talked about all the time, but basically if one country does it, it doesn't really matter. For example, COVID-19, like the whole biosecurity factor is a huge preventative measure to something like COVID-19, right? Because the whole reason that it started was contaminated food. So if you take out the contaminated food aspect out of it, that's where all diseases come from, not just COVID-19. They all come from some type of animal being consumed, then getting someone sick. So a big factor of biosecurity is making sure that the food we eat is as clean as possible, and to prevent something like this from ever happening again. Because they're spending billions of dollars on tracking people, spending billions of dollars on masks, spending billions of dollars on preventative measures, or not preventative measures, but spending billions of dollars on education. So it's like, I think we should, and I feel like it'd be smart for us to share some of those resources into creating a preventative measure instead, to prevent something from happening like this from happening again. So if, let's say, Canada just does that, that doesn't really help in the grand scale. Let's say the US doesn't need that, or the US just does it, right? That doesn't really make a difference. You need every global player, every small player to partake and adopt this technology to be able to prevent something like this from ever happening again. It's so for us, it's a really global mission. That's why I say it's going to take us at least a decade for us to really effectively make change. But other than that, competitors.
Well, let me just piggyback on what you just said really quickly.
Yeah, sure.
Also.
Go ahead.
So we've already had like a ton of interest come out of a ton of different countries, everything from the Netherlands to India to South America, even Egypt. And we, our whole goal is to find the right partners in each one of these countries that understand, the mission that we're trying to carry out. And if we have people who are willing to kind of, get on board with us and team up with us to help expand this quicker, we think we could do it way faster than a decade. But if we were to leave it completely up to us and us building our our own facilities, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time. Each facility we build, we plan to get bigger and bigger. And the best thing about aquaponics is that it becomes even more efficient the bigger you get. So our first facility is 20,000 square feet. Our second facility will be 62,000 square feet. And the third one after that, we plan to do over 300,000 square foot facility. And at that point, then we can really start, pumping out tons of different fruits and vegetables of all different types. And because we use aquaponics in a decoupled system, not only can we only grow one type of fish, and each of our fish tanks are decoupled as well, meaning that we can have multiple different fish species, all feeding multiple different types of plants. And it gives us a really, really wide variety of products to be able to offer people. And every single one of them we can ensure is going to be grown in the right way.
Yeah. And this is really a ESG type of business. It's really sustainable. We have a very, very low carbon footprint. A huge part of our carbon footprint is actually from farming, a huge part, and it takes thousands of bottles of water to produce one hamburger patty. So outside of
2,000 liters actually.
Yeah, 2,000 liters. So outside of just the biosecurity, just the fact that we take less space as well because we're vertical, sustainability aspect is huge too, because we recycle 95% of the water. We plan to use solar energy, as well as we don't have, we have no cow farts, for example, and we're not restricted, because as more pollution goes around, as more as the environment degrades because of our consumption and plastics, etc., the real estate's harder to come by. You're not going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of acres just to grow food, but where we can do that in a small, way smaller setting. So Pontus, I guess we can finish off Pontus. It's our explanation for it here is farming has a lot of room to grow, per se, and it's an industry that hasn't really innovated much in the past 10, 20, 30 years. The last biggest innovation in farming, in my opinion, was the creation of chemical pesticides and fertilizers, because in the 1900s or 1800s, that upscaled and increased production so much, and now that's why the population grew, is because there's more food, people weren't starving. We're able to have McDonald's on every corner, where have food in the grocery store every time you go there, because that wasn't the reality back then, right? Because they couldn't guarantee yield. They lost a lot of their crops. The production wasn't as high. Machinery and tractors went there. But as time went on, those innovations took pace. But what do we give up to get there? Well, nowadays when you eat food, you don't even know where it came from, and you don't know what's in it. All types of toxins, all types of chemicals. So we really have to rethink what we've done to our food, and we really have to rethink what we want to change about our food. And that's why we created Pontus, because we identified that one of the most important commodities for our survival is not being ruined, but it's the quality is definitely subpar, and the quality is not what we expect out of a 21st century advanced civilization that we claim to be. So we really want to catch up on that. We have our tech on our cell phones, the crazy tech for the military, but the way we grow our food is still very old, because thousands of years ago you're planting stuff in the ground. You look at today, it's the same thing, right? And you're watering it. It's the same practice. So everything else has changed, but food production hasn't. That doesn't really make sense, right? So that's
right.
The biggest thing is we didn't talk a lot about water lentils. We talked a lot enough to cover it, but we really wanted to emphasize that Pontus is really here to do much more than that. It's really to rethink the way we grow our food and improve it for not just tenfold, but thousandsfold in every possible way possible. We're looking at sustainable packaging, sustainable utensils. We're going to deliver our stuff in electric scooters. So we're going to do as much as we can with the resources available to us to make this a really ESG focused company, to really make impactful change, per se. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, Connor?
Nope. I think you talked about everything. So.
Yeah.
I think you guys killed it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Have you guys ever been on an interview like this, podcast or anything? Has anyone had you guys come in and do this yet?
A couple times, yeah. But me and Connor, we've broken down the business so many times. It's like a Bible in our head. Yeah, you talk about it enough times, right? But that's why you gotta love what you do, because if you're talking about selling like rubber bands, like it's hard to get excited about that and talk about it 15,000 times a day, right? But if you're talking about cool stuff like this where we really believe in, then it's much easier.
That's what I love about the stock market, because every day I get something new to talk about, because when something's going down, something's going up. So it gives me another company to review and do my due diligence and take a look at stuff. And I mean, right in the very beginning of March of last year, the first things that we videotaped and had on our sessions, we were talking about fuel cell and hydrogen, and how Elon Musk was basically going to just try to change the world in all different types of fashion with Tesla. So we were talking about all this stuff when everybody else was like running scared, saying, "Oh my God, the market's crashing," and we're like, "Well, this is the perfect opportunity to get in on these companies that no one's talking about, right?"
Exactly.
And that's where, you know, when at the end of what you said there, I'm going to be putting a big thing up that says the future of farming for this company. So you guys are the future farmers of maybe the Tesla of farming.
Yeah, no, we're looking at growing stuff in space too.
Hey, I was gonna say it, but I didn't want to go that far out. But I was like, hey, you know, you're talking solar. Be like, Tesla, come on, man. We'll get us on. We'll get you on Mars, growing food.
You know what? Yeah. So the guy who actually is like, you know, our CTO Steve is the one who developed the SIVA system. His mentor and also an advisor for us is a guy named Mark LaBerge, and he has actually worked with a company, still does, that has sat down with Tesla to look at actually how they would possibly use aquaponics to grow food on Mars. So we're definitely looking at that.
I know, it was
absolutely.
It was NASA. Yeah, same thing though.
Yeah,
what did I say?
Way. He's a Tesla.
Did I say SpaceX? Oh, Tesla. Sorry, NASA.
But NASA, but same difference. Yeah, we understand. So I mean, hey, you might have floating satellites of your technology floating around, just making food and then dropping it off to different places in the.
We have kind of a meme going around: space lobsters.
Lobsters.
Yeah, there you go. Because they live deep underwater. There's
space lentils.
Yeah, exactly.
Deep space lentil.
Yeah, exactly. Just the branding would be so easy at that point. You just stack space. Imagine a person on Earth buying something from space. That'd be the day.
So I've already figured that out. I called this out on a live interview with another person that's really into that stuff. And if you guys ever want to go into that in the future, I've talked about how I believe the future gold, the future silver, copper are going to be alien metals. It's going to be getting rocks, and jewelry is going to be amazing. You know, think about the guy that wants to buy that I got the first, you know, diamond from Mars or whatever, the first type of rock. I think it's going to be blowing up big. I think it's going to be good. I think and you know who's going to be the ones that are going to be able to do it, or the ones that are already out there. So you know how it would be a lot easier for these big companies that are already going to be out there in space, Virgin Galactic, NASA. You know, somebody's going to partner up with them and be like, hey, we need to do some space mining, you know, and it's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's where we're trying to, and that's the kind of scaled ideas that me and Connor and anyone that we work with want to tackle. Because that's really what makes life interesting, right?